Hello, and welcome to our midterm video project for Chinese myths and folklore. Today we would like to discuss with you the roles and portrayal of women and female characters within Chinese mythology and folklore. We decided to go with this topic because we were curious to see what were the common tropes, stereotypes, roles that women and female characters were often held within Chinese myths and folklore in contrast to that of male characters. So, with that, we'll be looking at the different genres of stories that we have either read or watched in this course and discuss the various roles of the female characters and the in comparison to the overall themes of that work. So we'll first be talking about women in the original Monkey King film. Next, we'll be talking about women in the Chinese Odyssey. Women in strange and horror stories will follow. And we will end with women in fox and ghost stories. We hope that this will provide not only an overall look into what was the basic role that women filled in Chinese myths and folklore, but also highlight the cultural elements of said stereotypes and express the relationship between men and women within myths and folklore as a reflection of the culture and time in which they were written. With that, we hope you enjoy, and thank you for taking a moment to watch our video.
Hello, this is Yu Hao Sang, and there are some female characters in the Monkey King original film, and there are two most impressive female characters, such as Princess Elephant and Fox Spirit. And these two images portrays a little bit more profoundly, and they also represent two women with different personalities. The image of Princess Elephant is more like an independent female figure, and she has cultivated into an immortal after years of hard works. And she has a fan that can blow people away like 1,000 miles away, and also can extinguish the fire on the Huoyan mountain. In addition, Monkey King has tried to borrow this fan many times. Although Princess Elephant couldn't beat Monkey King, but she and her husband had used many tricks to make Monkey King suffer a lot. When this image was portrayed, it also expressed the bravery of Princess Elephant and broke some of the previous impressions of women. Another female character is Fox Spirit. The Fox Spirit was actually a relatively positive image a long time ago. Most of the Fox Spirit knows how to repay the people who helped them, but in the legends of the last few hundred years, the Fox Spirit has gradually formed a stereotype, which is like they usually beautiful and they will seduce people and then kill them. And in the Monkey King, the image of the Fox Spirit is also a beautiful and gentle women, but with a lot of intelligence. And this is also shows the Fox Spirit like a gentle girl, and also it can contrast with Prince.
In this portion of the video, we'll be focusing on the woman in Chinese Odyssey, Pandora's Box. Of the two main female characters, the first that we have is the spider demon, who's seen as the level-headed demon who sticks to her and her sister's initial plan of the longevity monk's demise in order to gain immortality. When her sister, the white bone demon, refuses to kill the Monkey King due to her grown attachment to him, this causes a series of fights between the two of them. Her continued disgust with the Monkey King from him killing her sister 500 years ago allows resentment to grow within her, allowing her hatred to fuel her actions when finally fulfilling the plan. Despite the white bone demon being the sister that eventually falls in love, the spider demon is seen as the more seductive sister, even admitting that her magic is considered seductive magic. The white bone demon. The white bone demon is seen as Monkey King's initial love interest in a Chinese odyssey, Pandora's Box. While in the first few opening scenes with her, she continues her past narrative seen in other mythical features of being a deceptive demon, a new side of her is seen in this film. Upon hearing of Spider Demon's impregnation, the white bone demon assumes that it's all of the Monkey King's doing, plunging her into what seems to her an endless pit of despair. These feelings of depression stem from her character's inability to continue on without Monkey King, her quote-unquote white and shining armor. This misogynistic point of view is only reinforced by the catfights between the white skeleton demon and the spider demon in later scenes as well. The reinforcement that women are unable to detach themselves from the men they love is romanticized when the white bone demon protects her love from the wrath of her sister in a more positive light. Her depression, brought about by believing it was the Monkey King who impregnated her sister, leads to her suicide, as she cannot continue on with knowing her loved one impregnated her sister. While there are redeeming points and qualities of the woman in this film, the first part of the two-part series creates this idea that women are the harbinger of evil and trouble in this world, regardless of what positive outcomes they are capable of bringing about, and rely on men once they've fallen in love.
In my section of this presentation, I'm focusing on stereotypes of women depicted in horror tales from the strange tales of a Chinese studio. Before we begin, I want to start by asking you this question that you can think about as I highlight each of these stories. Who is depicted as the attacker or the demon in each tale? The first story that I want to take a look at is The Living Dead. In this story, the stereotype that women are seen as more worthless than men is depicted. The father doesn't even think twice about letting those travelers stay in the same exact room as his dead daughter-in-law. The fact that she hasn't even been given a proper burial speaks to the family's belief that women are less than men in the societal hierarchy. In the second story, Spitting Water, 3 women are attacked after they discover a water corpse in their garden. This desire that the women had to peek out of the window speaks to the sexist belief that women are constantly looking for more in life, even if they are well off. She could have been secure in her new home with her maids surrounding her, but she chose to look out of the window even though it would be her ultimate downfall, alluding to the idea that women have the stereotype that they are constantly in a state of discontentment. In the third story, The Biting Ghost, a misogynistic stereotype is highlighted. Throughout this Chinese mythology class, we have seen that stories imply that women continuously take advantage of men and leave the bad in sexual intercourse. The bad smell that is told in the story just implies the stereotype is being used here, because in sexual culture, women are constantly portrayed in such a negative light, seeing that they are believed to take the good from the man during sex. As you see, in each of these stories, the woman is depicted as the demon or the attacker. This alludes to the mistreatment and sexist stereotypes that we have seen throughout Chinese mythology stories, especially in these horror tales.
Hello everyone, my name's Tracy, and today I'm going to be talking about the portrayal of women in fox and ghost stories in Chinese mythology. So just to go ahead and refresh your memories and everything, here are some of the fox stories that we read in class. We read Fox Enchantment, The Fox of Henzhou, The Laughing Girl, and Lotus Fragrance. And then here are also some ghost stories that we read in class. The Laughing Girl, Lotus Fragrance, 20 Years a Dream, and The Magic Sword and the Magic Bag. And both Lotus Fragrance and The Laughing Girl actually had ghosts and foxes in both those stories. So you could see the portrayal of both of them in Chinese mythology. So just to start off, as many of us saw whenever we were reading these stories, women in fox stories were often portrayed as beautiful, tricky, mischievous, magical. They could even shapeshift and turn into beautiful women that were lustful to trick men into sleeping with them or into falling in love with them. And this is just much different than the portrayal of women in Chinese mythology, just in general, because women were considered usually subordinate. They obeyed men, they were loyal to them, they were trustworthy. And so the way that women were portrayed in fox stories is it just takes a whole different turn and shows us a different comparison of how women were portrayed in Chinese mythology. Women in ghost stories were often portrayed as very sexual, rebellious. They were beautiful. They were deceitful. We even saw this through some of our stories that we read. For example, when one of the ghosts tried to trick a man into having sex with her, and then when he didn't, she tried to trick him into accepting money from him. So there are just a few different examples of how ghosts were portrayed. This is also very different in the overall comparison because they were more independent and on their own compared to how most women were in Chinese mythology. So here's just a comparison between how women were portrayed in foxes. Women as foxes and ghosts were often able to defy the common characteristics or portrayal of what women were actually like in Chinese mythology because they were so independent and not subordinate and did their own thing in the world. They were also truly set apart from how women were usually portrayed. They tended to be rebellious and independent, whereas human women or just most women in Chinese mythology were almost never portrayed this way, which we could see in the Monkey King that we watched and the Chinese Odyssey. Women were more subordinate, comparatively speaking. I guess not so much in the Chinese Odyssey, which we see a little bit less of that, but still. And then both women as foxes and ghosts did not conform to the subordinate position that most women did in Chinese mythology. And they truly were just much more independent, had their own life, would make decisions for themselves. They could trick people if they wanted to, they could shapeshift if they wanted to. So it's just a totally different comparison or portrayal than what women actually were like in Chinese mythology. So just to go over real quick, after our whole video, here's our conclusion. Women were often portrayed as subordinate, beautiful, and loyal in Chinese mythology. This can definitely be seen in the Monkey King, but there were several different portrayals of women shown throughout all the stories that we've read and the movies that we've watched. And it just really depends on when and where the women are. So if women were foxes and ghosts, they were portrayed completely differently than they were in the Monkey King or in the Chinese Odyssey or in the other strange and horror stories that we've read throughout this semester so far. So that's just a brief overview of women and how women were portrayed in Chinese mythology. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you.